We are live. Kumbadi.
Thank you.
நான் chatல லிங்க் ஷேர் பண்றேன். உங்க ஃப்ரெண்ட்ஸ்க்கு யாருக்காவது ஷேர் பண்ணனும்னா பண்ணுங்க.
ஓகே, நம்ம குரூப்ல போட்டுருங்க.
Please proceed. Kavin, start பண்ணுங்கம்மா.
Hi, good morning everyone. My name is Pongadi Vijay Kumar from GATS. Welcome to GATS Youth Committee webinar. We are proud to introduce this Youth Committee boot camp. This is new concept in this year. We have more topics and multiple sessions coming, and I hope you will enjoy. I think this will create a good platform for young talented to show their skills, what they learned, and will be helpful for others to learn some new things. And here we have a GATS president, Mr. Jayasharthi, to talk few words about this camp. Here we go.
நன்றி பூங்குடி. இணைப்பில் இணைந்திருக்கின்ற அனைவருக்கும் என்னுடைய காலை வணக்கம். வெளிநாட்டிலிருந்து இந்தியாவிலிருந்து இணைஞ்சிருக்கிறாங்க, அவங்களுக்கு என்னுடைய மாலை வணக்கங்களை கூடி நிகழ்ச்சிக்குள் போகலாம். கிரேட்டர் அட்லாண்டா தமிழ் சங்கம் இந்த மாதிரி நிகழ்வுகளை நடத்தணும்னு சொல்லிட்டு எவ்ரி கோடை நிகழ்ச்சியாக இது நடத்துவோம். ஸோ அதுல பாத்தீங்கன்னா இந்த வருடம் தொடர்ந்து ஒரு 4 வாரங்கள் 5 வாரங்கள் தொடர்ந்து கேம்ப் நடந்துட்டே போகுது. ஸோ நான் இப்ப சொல்ல போற இன்ஃபர்மேஷன் பாத்தீங்கன்னா பேரண்ட்ஸ் தான் இந்த குழந்தைகளை எல்லாரையும் நீங்க என்கரேஜ் பண்றோம். செஸ் சொல்லி தர போறாங்க, ஸ்பானிஷ் பேச சொல்லி தர போறாங்க, பியானோ வாசிக்க சொல்லி தர போறாங்க. அண்ட் தென் கேம் விளையாடுற எல்லா குழந்தைங்களுக்கும் நீங்களே கேம் கிரியேட் பண்ணிக்கிறதுக்கான ஒரு வாய்ப்பை ஏற்படுத்தி தர போறாங்க. ரைட், இதற்கான முயற்சிகளில் கிரேட்டர் அட்லாண்டா தமிழ் சங்கம் தொடர்ந்து செய்து கொண்டே இருக்கும். அதனுடைய ஒருங்கிணைப்பாளர் பூங்கொடிக்கு என்னுடைய மிகுந்த நன்றியை வாழ்த்துக்களையும் தெரிவித்துக் கொள்கின்றேன். இன்று முதலாவதாக நடக்க இருக்கின்ற இந்த நிகழ்ச்சியில் இணைந்த அனைவருக்கும் நன்றி. நம்ம எல்லாம் என்ன பண்ணிட்டு இருக்கோம்? எல்லாருக்கும் எஜுகேஷன் கொடுக்க போறோம் இன்னைக்கு, இல்லைங்களா? கல்வி கொடுக்க போறோம். என்ன கல்வி? நல்லா படிச்சு வரோம் அப்படின்றத நம்ம பெற்றோர்கள்லாம் சொல்ல போறதில்ல, இதெல்லாம் எக்ஸ்ட்ராவா நம்ம கத்துக்க போறோம். கேடில் விழிச்செல்வம் கல்வி ஒருவருக்கு மாடல்ல மற்றவை எவை. இதுக்கு மீனிங் என்னன்னா, நம்ம சேர்க்கிற அசட்ஸ்லயே, நம்ம சேர்க்க போற செல்வங்கள்லயே மிகுந்த நல்ல செல்வம் கல்வி செல்வம்னு சொல்றாங்க. சோ அதுல கொஞ்சம் கொஞ்சமா கத்துக்கிறோம். நாங்க படிக்கும் போதெல்லாம் பாத்தீங்கன்னா எங்களுக்கு ஸ்பானிஷ்னா என்னன்னு தெரியாது. பியானோ வாசிக்கணும்னா நாங்க வேற ஊருக்கு போனோம். கேம் விளையாடுறதுக்குன்னா பபிள் கேம்ஸ் விளையாடிட்டு இருப்போம். இப்பெல்லாம் பாத்தீங்கன்னா ரொம்ப அட்வான்ஸ்டா இருக்கு, ரோட் பிளாக்ஸ் வரையும் விளையாடுறாங்க எல்லாருமே. சோ அந்த மாதிரி ரோட் பிளாக்ஸ் கிரியேட் பண்றதுக்கான ஒரு தளம் அமைத்து கொடுக்கப்படுகின்றது. சோ அந்த சின்ன விஷயங்கள்லாம் சொல்லி தர போறாங்க. நீங்க எல்லாம் அழகா உட்கார்ந்து கத்துக்கணும். தொடர்ந்து ஒரு 4-5 வாரங்கள் இது இருக்க போது. பெற்றோர்களுக்கு என்னுடைய நன்றி, என்னுடைய செயற்குழுக்கு நன்றி, இணைப்பில் இருந்த அனைவருக்கும் என் நன்றி. கவின் குமரேஷ்க்கு என்னுடைய தேங்க்ஸ். he is going to share his knowledge. He is very versatile in chess. So அவர் நம்மளுக்கு சொல்லி தர மிகுந்த நல்ல செல்வம் கல்வி செல்வம்னு சொல்றாங்க. சோ அதுல கொஞ்சம் கொஞ்சமா கத்துக்கிறோம். நாங்க படிக்கும் போதெல்லாம் பாத்தீங்கன்னா எங்களுக்கு ஸ்பானிஷ்னா என்னன்னு தெரியும். பியானோ வாசிக்கணும்னா நாங்க வேற ஊருக்கு போனோம். கேம் விளையாடுறது. ஓகே, மிக்க நன்றிங்க. நம்ம நிகழ்ச்சிக்குள் போகலாம். கவின், உங்களுக்கு
let me introduce Kavin actually. Jay, Kavin, I'll introduce actually. Today is a chess class. This is Kavin Kumaresh who will be presenting this class. He is a ranked player with a present at peaked at 1797 rating. It's a high rating actually. And he won the grade level state championships for the 3 years continuously, 2013 and 2014, 2015. In his first national chess event, he tied up with the 10th place grade level champion on 2011. Okay. So here we go, Kavin. This stage is yours.
So yeah, first of all, I would like to give a huge thanks to GATS and the youth committee for giving me this opportunity, and also to my parents. Thank you guys. All right. So I'm gonna share my screen now. And
ஒரே நிமிஷம் கவின். பேசாதவங்க கொஞ்சம் மியூட் போட்டுக்குங்க. அது கொஞ்சம் டிஸ்ட்ராக்ஷனா இருக்கும். மற்றவங்களை கவனிக்கிறதுக்கும் கொஞ்சம் தடையா இருக்கும். பேசாதவங்க தயவு செய்து உங்களுடைய லேப்டாப்போ போன்ல இருந்து நீங்க மியூட் பண்ணிக்கங்க.
Okay. So today we're going to be learning about chess basics, how to play chess, some mating patterns, as well as some strategies. All right. So to start off, the chessboard is a 8x8 square. There's 64 squares in total. And each square is alternating colors of light and dark. The light squares are called white or light squares, and the darker ones are called darker black squares. 16 white pieces and 16 black pieces are placed on the either side of the board. So, and they're lined up together. So the white square on the white square is on the bottom right of each player's bottom right corner. Okay, and if you look at the board horizontally, there are 8 files, and vertically there are 8 files. So the horizontal ones are called ranks, and the vertical ones are called files. In the board, there are 32 pieces in total. Each side has 16 pieces, the black side and the white side respectively. So the white side, there's a king. In both sides, there's a king, a queen, 2 bishops, 2 knights, 2 rooks, and 8 pawns. Okay, a king, a queen, 2 bishops, 2 knights, 2 rooks, and 8 pawns. This is, if you look at this board, this is how you arrange it at the very beginning of the game. So the pawns go in the front, the rooks are in the corners, the knights go in between them, bishops go in between that, king and the queen are in the very center. So the objective of the game is to trap the opponent's king so that they're in check and the king cannot move anywhere. That is what it's called, is checkmate. If the king is trapped, it's in check and the king cannot move anywhere. That's called checkmate. Okay. So in this picture, that's how the king has nowhere to move, so that's checkmate. So the player who achieves this checkmate wins the game. Okay, so in every chessboard, in most chessboards, you see there's going to be on the edge of the chessboard, there's going to be for the horizontal rings, there's going to be labeled from 1 to 8, and on the files, it's going to be labeled A to H. This is here for a reason, okay? So if you move any piece, that means that corresponding piece has a corresponding rank and a file. So that square is what the new piece goes to. For example, if I move my pawn from E2 to E4, that's where it's going to move, to the E4 square. So why is this important, you may ask? That is because in every competitive tournament, it's mandatory for you to write your moves on a piece of paper. It is necessary from the tournament organizers to make sure you write the moves. So that's why that's important. Okay, and each piece has its own letter. So the king is K. So if I move my king to D1, I would write KD1 on my notation sheet. Okay, the knight is K, the rook is R, the pawn has no letter, the queen is Q, bishop is B, and that's it. Okay. All right, so now we're gonna learn how each piece moves. Okay, so first of all, the king can only move 1 square horizontally, vertically, or diagonally. So, the king is the most important piece in the game. That's the piece you're trying to protect. The rook can move horizontally or vertically through any number of unoccupied squares. The bishop moves diagonally, and the knight moves in an L shape. And it can jump over any piece. the knight moves in an L shape, so it can move either 2 squares horizontally and 1 vertically, or 2 vertically and 1 horizontally. It moves in an L shape. Okay. The queen moves straight, diagonal, or horizontally or vertically. So the queen has the most range of moves. It's also the most valuable piece in the game, other than the king. The pawn has the most complex amount of moves. So in the first move, for either side, the pawn can either move 2 squares or just 1 square during the first move. But after the first move, it has to keep moving 1 square. And then the pawn captures other pieces diagonally by 1 square. All right, so there are 2 special moves in chess. The first one is called en passant. So that happens when a pawn attacking a square crossed by an opponent's pawn has advanced 2 spaces from its original spot. So this is kind of a complicated rule. It doesn't usually happen in actual tournaments, but it's something you should keep in mind, right? So this, if you look at this picture here, white's pawn is already pushed to the 5th rank. Black moves his pawn twice, and then you can capture it diagonally, even though it is not directly capturing it. You capture it before. All right. Our second special rule is more widely used than the first. It's called castling. So in castling, what occurs is it's a move made by your king and your rook to better protect your king. Usually in these diagrams there's no other pieces, but usually there will be many other pieces because this is an opening move. You do this like in the very beginning of the game. All right, so the king you move if it's on the queen side, the rook, and if there's 3 spaces in between your king and your rook, that means you do a queenside castle. Your king moves to the c1 square and your rook moves to the d1 square. And if it's on the king side, your king moves to the d1 square and your rook moves to the f1 square. G1, sorry. Okay. So any questions so far? Any questions so far on any of these moves or anything I've discussed so far? Okay, no? All right. So another special rule in chess is when your pawn reaches the end of your rank, it can change to any other piece other than the pawn or the king. So you can change it to the rook, bishop, knight, or queen. So if your pawn reaches the end of its file, you can promote it to any other piece you want. And that includes a rook, bishop, knight, or queen. All right. So there are mainly 3 ways. There's only 3 ways to prevent checks. All right. So the first is you can capture the piece giving check. So you can take it. Or the second, you can block. You can make sure that the piece giving check doesn't hit your king anymore by using another piece to get in its way. Or the third, you can avoid by moving your king. Okay. In this picture, the white bishop on c5 is giving check to the king on g1. And so of these 3 options, you cannot capture the bishop. There's no way you can capture it. There is 3 ways to block. You can either move your knight in an L shape to d4, although they will just take it after you do it. You can move your queen to e3. That's also not advised because they will take it again. And you can also move your rook to f2, and this is also not worth it because their bishop will take your rook, and even if you take it back, the rook is more valuable than the bishop. And then the final options, you can move your king, which is probably the best option in this scenario. So the 3 ways to prevent check are either to capture, block, or avoid. Okay, so you can also draw in a game. It's just not winning or losing. If there's 5 conditions where you can draw. The first condition is where both players agree to a draw. You shake hands and call it a draw, and then it's recorded as so. If another one is if both players have traded enough pieces, so it's impossible for either player to checkmate the other. So basically, if black has a king and a knight, and white has just a king, it's impossible for black to checkmate with just those 2 pieces. So that would be a draw. This is the third rule is 3-move repetition. If the same position is achieved 3 times, 3 different times, after like moves are in between the 3 times, that's considered a draw. The fourth rule usually does not happen because it requires a lot of moves. If 50 moves occur, 50 white moves and 50 black moves occur, and there have been no piece capture or pawn move, that would be a draw. This usually doesn't happen, and most chess games end before 50 moves. Okay, so and then the fifth one is called stalemate. Stalemate is when one of the sides has no legal moves to make and is not in check. So in this picture, that would be considered a stalemate. Okay, can you guys see the picture like completely? All right, if you guys can see it now, the queen is blocking all of the king's legal moves. All right, so now let's go over some basic checkmates. All right, so we'll go over how to checkmate with certain pieces. All right, any questions so far? I'll be glad to help.
So if you have so for the promoted pawn, if you already have like 2 rooks, and then your pawn gets to the squares on the other side, can you take another rook? So like
Yeah, you can take as many pieces as you want. Even if you have like, you can promote 5 queens. It doesn't matter. All right. So the first basic checkmate I'm going to tell you guys is how to checkmate with the king and queen against just the king. Okay, so this is a common checkmate. Once you reach the endgame, if you have a queen left, this will be helpful. All right, so the first thing you have to know is you have to keep your queen in an L shape from the king. Okay, you have to keep it in L shape, so you have to limit the amount of moves the king can make. Okay, so if I move my queen to D2, I keep it in L shape. And okay, that's probably not the best move here because now my king has more room than when it originally was. So I would have just moved my king in that position. So you have to keep your queen in an L shape and you have to remove as many possible moves the opponent king can make. So this, you have to keep this L position and you have to limit as many moves as you can. You see my queen is every move black's king makes, your queen limits more and more space, right? So the king was originally here. The king was originally here. It had all of this space. It had all of this space to go with the king, but now it has only these 3 files. Okay. All right. So once if you already have the L shape and their king still hasn't moved yet, like this, just keep going. You have to keep limiting the amount of lanes the enemy king has. Okay. All right. So let's say his king gets to the very end and you can't go out of the board. So what do you do here, right? If you move your queen to F3, now you limit even more squares. Now the king only has this square and this square to move to. So once the king moves here, just move your queen here, and now the king has these 2 moves. And while the king is moving in these 2 squares repetitively, you can move your king forward and checkmate him. Okay, this is a very common mistake. Make sure you don't move your queen here to keep the L-shaped opposition. If you do this, this will be a stalemate position and it will be considered a draw. So make sure you don't do that. Just keep moving your king in until it's checkmate. All right. Any questions on that? Any questions on how to checkmate with the king and queen? All right. Okay, so next checkmate, we'll do rook. King and rook versus king, okay? So this is basically the same.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry for this. கொஞ்சம் slowly-ஆ பண்ணிடுங்க.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so this is the king and rook checkmate. This uses your king and rook, and it's the same concept as the king and queen, but you have to support your rook because the queen can support for itself. The king can't come next to the queen. But the king can come next to the rook. It can attack the rook. It can constantly attack the rook. Therefore, you have to limit the amount of squares, right? And once the king attacks again, you can support it with your own king. So now the king only has 3 moves, and out of these 3 moves, whichever one it chooses, you just have to keep pushing your king so that you limit more moves with your rook. And then once you limit the most amount of squares with your rook, the king will be cornered and you can achieve checkmate. All right, so in this situation, the king only has 1 move left, and then this will be checkmate. All right. Okay, so those are the 2 main checkmates you need to know for the end game. So I'll give you guys some puzzles. Let's see if any of you guys can answer them, okay?
Hello.
Hey, you have a question?
No.
All right. Okay, so here's a puzzle that it's a checkmate in 1 puzzle. See if any of you guys can answer it. All right, it's black to move. Checkmate in 1, okay? Let's see if any of you guys can answer it. Okay, well, let's just move the queen here. Okay, black to move, checkmate in 1. Or winning a queen. Any of you guys? Any of you guys have an answer?
I know.
All right, what do you think it is?
I think it is move the rook to D1.
Yep, that's correct. And after that, you win a queen, and this is a winning game because you have 3 pawns that you can promote with the help of your bishop. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Any questions on that puzzle? No. All right. All right. We'll go over an endgame position. This is also very common. Let's say you have a king and a pawn versus a king, okay? All right, so this is more trickier than the king and the queen and the king and the rook because it's a pawn, it's just a pawn. So you have to somehow try to promote this pawn. You have to somehow try to promote this pawn to the end without trying to get a stalemate or without the enemy king taking the pawn. All right, so how do you do this, right? So you have to first claim opposition. So opposition is basically you have to be 2 moves in front of the enemy king. You have to be on this square right here, okay? You have to move your king so it's in front of their enemy king, and your pawn has to be behind you. All right. So in this situation, this is going to be a draw because there's no way for white to get opposition. Let's say you move your king here. Okay, so let's say, all right, actually, wait. All right, so let's say you move your king here. Black just has to go here, and he claims there's no way for you to move your king in front of his king to claim opposition. You guys understand? All right, so the only move king white has here is to move his pawn, and black just has to move back here, and once he moves here, black has the opposition. There's no way for this situation is automatically a draw. You don't even have to look through it. It's a draw. I'll show you what I mean. So let's say he moves his pawn, check. King goes here. Moves his pawn. King goes here. Moves his opposition, check. King goes here. King goes here. King goes here. King goes here. Check. And this is a draw. Their enemy king has nowhere to move. It's a stalemate situation. Can anyone tell me what stalemate means? I explained it earlier. Do you guys know what stalemate means?
Stalemate means it's a draw.
Yeah, but
Anywhere. I don't know what it means.
all right, cool. Yeah, it basically means
When the king can't move anywhere, but if it does move anywhere, it's gonna be in checkmate.
yeah,
So it can move anywhere.
it will be in check if it moves anywhere, but at the moment it's not in check.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. So that's what stalemate means. All right. All right. I'll quiz you guys real quick on what we learned so far. Okay. All right. So if I move my pawn here, and then let's say he makes just this move. If I move my pawn here, what is this move called? Is this move legal? Can I take the pawn by, oh my god. Can I take the pawn by moving this pawn here? If so, what is that move called? Anyone
That's
remember?
an illegal move.
That is not an illegal move.
It's called en passant. En passant.
No, that is called en passant. It's the special move. It's the first special move I talked about. If I take the pawn, that's called en passant. All right, the second special rule. Does anyone remember it?
Me.
Yeah, Akuish. You don't have to raise your hand.
Castling,
Nope, castling. How does that work?
where you you take your king to like a G1, and then you take the rook to like F1, so that it's like changes position.
Yeah, you move your. It's a castling is a move with your king and rook, and you have to. It's used to make your king safer. So in this situation, both sides can castle if they so choose to. This makes your king safer. Like your king is much safer in this area. It's much safer in this area instead of this area where, there's like the enemy can move their rook and they can attack your king. All right. Another thing we learned. So, all right, I'll teach you the point values, okay? So every piece has its own point values. The pawn is worth 1 point. It's the least valuable piece in the game. Okay. The rooks are worth 5 points. The knights and bishops both are worth 3 points all. The queen is worth 9 points, and the king is worth infinite points. You know why? Why do you think the king is worth infinite points?
Because if you lose the king, you lose the game.
Yeah. All right. So those are the point values, but you got to remember these are relative point values. Okay. So if your rook is stuck in the corner, does it really mean it's worth 5 points? No. Like if it's not helping the game, then it's as much worth as a pawn. You can say that. But if a rook is very active, if it's in the middle of the game, then yeah, it's worth 5 points. Okay. And knights tend to be stronger in the middle game and bishops tend to be stronger in the end game. This is because in the middle game, the pieces are usually clustered a lot. Knights can move through the pieces, and it's a favorable situation for them. And in the end game, there's less pieces on the board. It's more clear, and the bishops are more dominant in that case. Okay. All right. So let's go over some more puzzles. Okay. No. This is a very important situation. You can say. Okay, so uh, okay. Hmm. All right, this is a hypothetical situation. All right, but this is a sacrificial checkmate, okay? What do you think the best move is in this situation? It's for black to move, black to move. You guys look at it. I'll give you some time. You don't have to raise your hand. You can just answer.
So if you like move the black queen, and then you kill the white rook,
Yo, and then?
and then yeah, the king takes the queen, and then you take this down, and then you take the rook.
That is
Black rook.
checkmate. This is checkmate. Do you know why? Because the king can't move here.
Yeah.
Because of this rook
Yeah.
guarding that square. All right. Okay, so all right, we'll go over another checkmate situation in the end game. All right. So if white has two rooks and black has a king. All right, so this is basically what you call the ladder mate because it's like a ladder, right? If white moves his rook here, it limits this entire file for the black king. So then let's just say black moves here, move your rook here, black moves here, and now you can't keep with the ladder mate, so you have to move your rook to the other side. So if black moves here, you move here, and of course this is the ladder mate because the other rook keeps a watch of the file that your first rook was not guarding, and then your first rook puts it in check, so the only remaining file for the king to go is in the last room. All right. So if the only move king can move anywhere here. So let's say the king moves here to be annoying and prevent the checkmate. You just have to move your rook all the way to the other side, and then it will be checkmate anyways. All right. Okay, we'll go over some openings then. All right. All right, so there's 3 stages of a chess game. Does anyone know them? Anyone know them? 3 stages. There's opening, middle game, and end game. Okay. In the opening, you have to. The objective is to develop your pieces. You have to develop your pieces. Get out. Make your king into safety by castling, like I showed you before. And activating your pieces. Those are the 2 main things in the opening. All right, and in the middle game, you're looking for strategies. You're looking for tactics to give you an initiative. Okay, to take some of their pieces, to try to take any sort of lead you have. Okay, and in the end game, you're trying to finish the game. You're gonna activate your king, because there's not any more pieces, so it doesn't. Your king will be safe no matter what. So you can activate your king in the end game, and then you have to you're trying to promote your pawns, make a queen, and then end the game that way. Okay.
Does castling count as like a turn?
Yeah, castling is a move. Castling is a move. So a lot of people, some people don't know this, but one move considers as, if you can stop doing that, whoever that is, that'd be nice. All right, if one move considers as 1 black move and 1 white moves. So if you look at on this side here, this is the notation, or otherwise the moves. So if I move my pawn here and my pawn here, it still says 1, right? And then after I move my knight here, it's gonna say 2, because this first entire thing is 1 move. 1 white move and 1 black move is 1 move. Okay. Some people don't know that. Okay. All right. So I'll teach you a common opening. Okay. All right. So. All right. Both. All right. So the first main move a lot of people make in the very beginning is to move their pawn to e4. Why do you think that is? All right. So first of all, this bishop gets active. There's no longer pawn blocking it. Also, this queen is also active. All right. That's why the move e4 is pretty good. So why do you think e3 is not as good? Does anyone want to tell me? Why is e3 not as good as e4?
It gives them less space to move around.
Yeah, it gives less space for this bishop to go out. Okay, so if you move e4, then you can move d4, and now this bishop's also active. Okay, both bishops are active. But if I move e3 instead, let's say he goes here, d3. This bishop is not active anymore. There's this pawn blocking it. You understand? All right, so that's why e4 is the most common move in the very beginning to play, and then respectively black goes e5 to do the same. All right. And what do you think is next most best move in the situation for white? White can get out his bishop. He can get out his knight. Don't get out your queen too early. That's not a good idea, because your queen can develop for later. It's the most important piece. So you have to keep that in the back line. So first, just try to develop your inactive pieces. All right. So in this situation, knight f3 is a good move. It not only attacks this pawn right here, but it also brings out your knight. You can go here, and you can move it around once this pawn is gone. That's why knight f3 is a very solid move in this situation. But the main reason is because it attacks this pawn and it puts pressure on the center. That's also another main objective in the opening. You have to put pressure on the main 4 squares. Okay, this is the center squares. You have to put pressure on these so you can dominate the later games. All right. So then black goes here to not only support this, but also put his own pressure in the center. So why can't take this? Because then black will just take his knight. So is a pawn for a knight worth it? No, right? Here white has many options. A common one is to activate the bishop, attack this knight which is supporting this pawn. So that's how you have to think in chess, right? You have to find what their weakness is, and then you have to exploit it. All right. So you have to attack what's supporting their weakness. All right. So here, let's say knight goes here, right? So you're probably thinking, so white's main move here is actually castling. So you're probably thinking, well, black can just take this pawn, right? Well, not exactly, because then white can move his rook here, and you can just take the pawn right back. You can just take it right back. So it doesn't really matter. So now white's rook is activated, and his bishop's also activated. Well, black's pieces are not. So it's not very worth it for him to take this pawn right here. Instead, what black should usually do is just activate his bishop. This is a common move for allowing him to castle and also getting out his bishop. All right, so once black does this, white supports his loose pawn, and then black castles, and then white gets out his pieces. This is a very normal opening. This is just a standard opening. This probably happens in a lot of games. All right, so if you want to play a more aggressive opening as black, you can play the Sicilian, which is e4, c5. All right, this is threatening to capture this point right here with the help of this pawn and attack it with this pawn and his knights. So this is the Sicilian. So what white? Anyone have a question? So what white wants to do is attack the center before black can. So he moves out his knight, threatening to play his pawn here. So black counterintuitively supports this point. So a common theme you will get from looking at openings is these four squares are very important in the very beginning of the game. These four squares are is what makes it or breaks it. All right. Yeah. Okay. So that's basically the main point of openings. Yeah. All right. So let's go into a middle game position. Yeah. Let's go into a middle game position. We'll just see. We'll see what sort of tactics you can exploit in the middle game. All right. All right. So let's say the situation's like this. All right. And what white wants to do is, what white wants to do is try to get an initiative and get an advantage in this situation. So what do you think is weak right now in black's defense right now? Anyone have a guess? All right. Well, this knight is very weak because his queen is behind it. So when a queen is behind a piece, you can exploit some tactics such as pins, which pin the knight to the queen. So this knight can't move anywhere now, because if it does, this bishop will take the queen. That's basically the entire point of this threat. So let's say I move. Let's just say black ignores the spin and just moves something else at random. White can put more pressure to this. Just taking it right now wouldn't be worth it, because black can just take back, and white gains nothing from that. But instead, white can put more pressure on this point using his other pieces, so that he can actually gain something, right? So what's a way to put more pressure on that piece? Anyone know? Anyone have a guess? All right, so if I move this knight here, his knight can't take, remember, because I take his queen if he takes. So this just puts more pressure on this point right here. And it prevents his knight from moving. So what do I gain from this? If I take this knight, he can't take with the queen because I'll take his queen with the bishop, and he's just losing a queen in that situation. So he has to take it with his pawn, and what that does is it opens up his entire king side. All right, so I'll show you. So let's say he moves his rook here. I take, he takes, and now look, his entire king side is open for attacks from my queen, from my knight, and from my bishop. So this is a completely losing situation for black. I'll show you why. So let's say black tries to get active with his own pieces. He does something like this, threatening the bishop, threatening the knight. You just got to move your knight away. Now you're threatening checkmate, okay? So how is this checkmate? If my queen goes here, where can his king move? His king can't. Can anyone capture that piece? Can anyone avoid it? Can anyone block it? You can't block that. You can't capture it. He just has to avoid here, and then you will checkmate from there. All right, so that's basically how middle games work. You have to, for every one move your opponent calculates, you have to calculate 2 or 3 moves. All right. So you have to just be one step ahead of them at all times. Let's do a couple of puzzles to wrap it up. All right. Okay, so all right, so let's see, my king is here, black king's here, black queen is here. All right. Okay, so let's say this is the position. It's white to move. What does he do? Anyone have a guess?
Does promoted pawn?
Yeah, he promotes the pawn.
Promotes the pawn to what?
The queen.
Yeah.
A queen is good, but another good option, probably the best option in this situation, is a knight. Yeah, this doesn't, this auto promotes. So if he promotes to a knight, all right, just imagine this is a knight. It's not working for some reason. If this was a knight, he attacks the king and the queen, and he will just take the queen the next move. And now he's an extra pawn, so he can promote it and win the game. All right. So that was one tactic. Let's go over another one. So does anyone know what that's called? If a knight was there instead, right? Does anyone know what this is called?
A fork.
Yo, that's called a fork, right? A fork is basically when one piece attacks both at the same time, right? And then he has to lose one of them. So he's not going to lose the king because that's the most important. So he has to move that and take the king, queen. All right, so we'll do tactics then because we're already on that subject. All right. So let's say my king is here. All right. Okay, white to move. What do you think the best move is? For what?
Bishop f8 check.
Yep. That checks the king. He has to move, and he will take the rook. All right. All right. Good job. All right. So that's what you call a skewer. When the king is in the middle, and then the king has to move, you can take the piece. The pin is when something valuable is on the other side of the piece in the middle. A pin would be if the rook was in the middle and the king was on the side. But that was a skewer since the king was in the middle. It's more valuable than the rook. You move the king and take the rook, right? All right, can someone tell me what a fork was again? All right, it's fine.
Where a piece is like attacking two other pieces at the same time.
Yep, that's a fork. All right.
And you don't
Okay, I
want
think we
them
can.
to-
Oh, I'm sorry. All right, I think we're done for today. All right, I have some puzzles for you guys. If you wanna write down your email in the Zoom chat, I can send you some puzzles. We're gonna go over them next week, anyways. But I'll send them to you if you want. So if you you can message me on Zoom and your email, and I'll send them to you later. All right. Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah. Go ahead.
What's your favorite opening as white?
As white,
Yeah.
I played the Rui Lopez.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. All right, so that's it for today. I'll see you guys next week. All right, remember to leave your emails in the chat. Message me. I'll email you some puzzles. All right, that you can look at. All right, we done? Hello, Auntie. Okay. All right, leave your emails in the chat.
Kavin,
Yeah.
did you ask any question?
Yeah. Anyone have any questions? Any final questions?
Oh, okay. Oh, nothing. You can talk.
Okay.
No. No.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Oh, all right. For,
Thank you. Bye.
all right, bye.
Bye.
Hope you'll enjoy, right?
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, come and join next time, okay?
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you so much, Kavin.
Bye. All right.
Thank you, Kavin.
Thank you.
Bye.
What is the ideal age to learn chess?
I learned chess when I was 7, but if you're elementary school is really good to learn chess because the competition is really easy. You can really grow when you're in elementary school, but if you really want to start trying, yeah, elementary school is the best to start learning chess. You get a advantage from the other players.
Okay, thank you. And is there any, best online sites available for chess? Can you suggest something for
Yeah,
kids?
chess.com is really good for
Okay,
beginners. Chess24 is also good. Chess24.com.
okay, thank you. Awesome
Yeah,
session.
thank you. All right.
I have one more question.
Yeah.
What do you play defense against the Evans?
Against the Evans.
Yeah.
I usually don't play against the Evans, but just all right. You're not gonna see Evans a lot.
I've seen it a lot, so that's why I'm asking.
All right, if someone plays Evan, just play e4 d4. That's probably the best. All right, e4 d4 and activate your knights. Okay. I don't know what the opening is called exactly on the top of my head, but d4 really, if you control the center against the Evans, it's really okay. The Evans is not a good opening at all. Okay. So
Well, I mean, it depends.
you should be able to counter it. All right. Yeah. if you're having trouble against it, just use a software. See what the best moves are against it. That's what I do against the opening I have trouble against. Just use a software.
Like an engine.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Okay.
Wait, one more question. You say you played the Roy, right?
Yeah.
What do you do against the Berlin defense if you play the Roy?
You just castle, and then just the Berlin's defense is the most common one. So you just do the Roy Lope. So after knight f6.
Mhm.
After knight f6 castle. I showed the Berlin's defense right now actually. Just after you castle, he's gonna play bishop e7. Get your rook out, and then I play c3 d4 against Berlin's.
Okay.
That's the variation I play.
Wait, you play the d4 line?
Yeah.
Okay.
I play c3 first though. All right. Any other questions? All right. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.